This is EntreEd Talk, the podcast for entrepreneurial educators by entrepreneurial educators. We are your hosts, Toi Hirschman and
Amber Ravenscroft. This podcast is created by the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education, or EntreEd for short. Welcome back to another episode of EntreEd Talk. We are so excited to be here today with Mr. Ian Kitajima. He is the Director of Corporate Development and a Technology Sherpa, we're going to dive into that later, for a company called Oceanit, a mind-to-market lab of 160 scientists, engineers, technologists, designers, and dreamers conducting advanced research for government and private clients. If you watch James Bond movies, Oceanit is like Q's lab of scientists and engineers inventing the next great thing to save the world. As Oceanit's Technology Sherpa, his role is to move science and tech breakthroughs from the lab to the marketplace, which has included 3 venture-backed startups. He's the co-founder of the design thinking movement in Hawaii, the Altino movement, to teach 5,000 non-tech teachers creative problem-solving skills via computer programming so that 100% of students in Hawaii can be exposed to computer science. And he's also worked on Aloha AI to put artificial intelligence into the hands of teachers and students. He brings an innovation mindset to several boards, including PBS Hawaii, Public Schools of Hawaii Foundation, and the Workforce Development Council. Welcome, Ian.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you guys.
I said I was going to condense your bio, but I literally couldn't because it was
I know. You see, I think you're reading the whole thing.
It's like six words out, I think.
It was, I mean, I couldn't cut any of that out. So
you did it so great. I thought it was like, wow.
Thank you. I tried really
you can be my agent or something. You know?
That's what I'm here for. We like to kick it off always with kind of getting a little bit of a feel for your background. I know I covered a lot there, but how did you get to maybe where you are today? And what has been kind of your compelling goal that's driven you thus far?
That's a great question. I think in general, I think growing up in Hawaii, we're so isolated, right? We're like the most isolated population in the world. It takes minimally about 5 or 6 hours to get here from pretty much anywhere, and in even longer times, depending where you're coming from. I guess my life has always been about like kind of leaving Hawaii and going away. I would say I ran away from home at least 3 times. But I think as the more I ran away from home and left, and the last time I went all the way to, to the other side of the world, to Finland. I realized that Hawaii was so special that, I was working with, at the time, with, the top, mobile phone companies in the world in Finland. If this is the best in the world, I know people back in home in Hawaii that are just as talented as these folks. And so it made me realize that I didn't have to keep running away from Hawaii, that actually everything I wanted was here. And so, I moved back home to Hawaii in about 2001. As I look back too, my career has always been about where can I go where I can learn the most? Like that's kind of driven my decision. So it's like, if I was given a challenge, the really hard one or the easy one, I would always pick the hard one. And if I could go work someplace where I could learn a whole lot versus make a whole lot of money, I went and picked the one where I could learn the most, not where I could make the most money. And I feel like that is always driven. So when I talk to young people, I always say, pick the thing that's the hardest because you're going to learn the most from it, even if you fail, right? And so that's kind of always been foundational for me, and it's kind of led me to where I am today. And I think I'm kind of one of those people you consider a late bloomer. I was always a really bad student, an incredibly bad student. In fact, when I think my parents must be just, wondering like what happened because I was such a bad student. I did not like school. Well, I was so bored. I think part of it is I'm so involved with education today because I think, part of it is I kind of blew it. I kind of wasted the opportunities I had when I was growing up in a way. So now it makes me more appreciative of what's in front of me and what we can bring to students and young people, not just here in Hawaii, but maybe in other parts of the world as well. So
in our song there, buddy, because what you're saying is exactly what we want our kids, to students in general, to feel like they would like to feel that they want to pick the hard choice and to be adventurous. And, I'm not going to dive into it because I always do, but like that's a big issue in our school system is it's not your fault. I don't like that you said wasted, because I think that that's an issue with our school system, that kids are bored, especially brilliant ones they feel like it's, it's not important to be there because they don't see the point.
Yeah.
They probably want to catch the bus and go.
Yeah. They want to go someplace and learn something. Like, why am I doing? I think part of it is very little context around how we're educated. Like, why am I learning algebra 1? Right. Or algebra. But, if you think about, for example, artificial intelligence, right? If you take algebra 1, and we did, like, for the coding things that we do, I had a teacher develop this lesson around programming, and it's kind of a graphing exercise where it's like time and distance, and the kids would plot these points, right, of like having this car go a certain speed at a certain distance for a certain time period, and they would kind of plot the distance the car would go after 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and they'd plot it, and they draw a line of best fit. They draw this line through all those dots, and then they would do predictions. Right? They go, okay, so if I gave you 10 seconds and said, okay, make the car go 10 seconds, how far now would you predict the car would go based on the previous plots you had in that line of best fit? All of a sudden, instead of saying, let's learn algebra 1, and you said, would you like to learn how to make predictions? I'd be like, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Right?
Now, all of this thing eventually leads to polynomial algebra and neural networks, which is really driving this AI revolution that's right happening today, and it's coming very, very quickly. So all of a sudden, algebra 1 makes like, it's foundational, versus why am I learning this stuff? But this is the thing that I think we didn't get, and we don't get enough of. And so the work that you guys are doing around education and entrepreneurship and innovation is like incredibly important for young people. Otherwise, they end up like me, getting on the bus and like running away from school. I mean, I cut class so much, unfortunately, because I would go surfing. Right? But if somebody connected algebra to surfing, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm like, make it relevant.
Yeah.
Make it interesting, make it inspiring, and I'm sure I would have showed up at class and been so much more engaged.
That's the special sauce there, because that's what we try to have teachers do all the time, especially with the entrepreneurship and innovative and design-based thinking. It's make it relevant, make it make sense, so that kids have a reason for doing it. Because like you said, that's the greatest example for algebra, is that, like, you're starting that, unit rate conversation at the foundation of algebra and calculus, but in a way that you're kind of sideswiping kids with it. Like, oh, look at this fun thing that we can do. Oh, wait, by the way, it's algebra.
Yeah, maybe later on, you don't have to say you're doing algebra, but then later go, what is this thing we're doing? Oh, it's called algebra. It's called geometry and trigonometry, and it's like, you don't have to like shock them with that. Entice them and draw them in with something that is interesting and fun, and they can apply. I think this is the thing, is the applied learning is, because kids are so distracted. When I say distracted, they have other interests. Yeah. There's so many other interests that it's hard to grab their attention. So I think a lot of what we do too is what can we do to grab their attention and inspire them so that we can actually learn something.
Man, I could listen to you talk all day. We don't have to ask any questions. Just keep going.
We have to address the Sherpa, though. We do. Yeah, we do. We need to dive in. Because I'm envisioning like the guy going up the mountain, and there's a lot of technology. Hey.
Yeah, kind of. We're missing fingers and missing toes too along the way. But yeah, I was gonna say that I really admire the work that teachers do. I think, again, after as you get older, you realize, oh, wow, she was really trying to help me, right? Or this teacher really tried to reach me, And at one time I was thinking about becoming a teacher, but after doing 2 summers of summer fun for K-12 students, from K through 12 for 2 summers, I realized I can't do this. I don't have the strength. It was like one of those, the greatest job, the greatest thing I could be doing, but I just couldn't handle. So I have such great respect and admiration for teachers for the commitment they make to young people. And I know why they do it, I think, because, you know, in the work that I'm doing, at least for the community things that we're doing, I can see where all the hard work, and then you see something that happens and you go, okay, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's those moments you just go, oh, okay. And then for all those moments you'll never realize or see, because, you know, your students are off into the world and they're doing these great things and they're thinking about you, going, oh, I remember Amber, I remember Toi, but you'll never maybe see them again, but know that, you know, you made a huge difference in their life.
Yeah. At our company, we call that lollipop moments. So there's like one little thing. Yeah. There's like one little thing that you might do that they remember, and that's like their lollipop moment. And that they'll remember you years or decades down the road, but you might not remember what you did for them. So it's an interesting leadership concept by itself separately. But I do want to dive into the Sherpa, because we do have to circle back. Yeah. In the idea of Oceanit and this idea of mind to market lab, like I love the terms that are associated with your work. And so I was wondering if you could elaborate more on it, because I didn't want to butcher it at all by attempting to do that. Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit more? So, you know, my formal title is that Director of Corporate Development, which is really around starting and building companies and different things for Oceanit. The Tech Sherpa is actually a nickname my boss gave me. You know, and it is, you know, if you know what a Sherpa is, you know, they're kind of like a guide, right? They help you to get up and off the mountain. And if you ever have been climbing before, one of the, you know, the things you learn is, you know, it takes so much effort to get to the top, and there's so many like pitfalls along the way. And so having a guide, you know, is a very important part. But when you get to the top, you're actually only halfway. Mm-hmm. You still got to get down the mountain. And that's when actually everyone gets hurt. Anyway, so part of my role here is to connect our people that are out there, partners, customers, clients, people who have different challenges, different problems. And we're really looking for those folks who are maybe have been trying to solve a problem for maybe 10 or 20 years and nothing seems to work. So we're looking actually for the extreme situations and people who are ready for change. See, that's one of the biggest things that I think Oceanit in general is what's unique, is that we live in the future because we invent the future. You know, is that saying, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Ellen Kay said that, and we totally live that. But when you live in the future and you invent the future, you're actually creating things that people have never experienced before. You know, it's kind of like everyone rides horses and you show up with the automobile. Mm-hmm. People look at you and go, what's that? And go, where does the hay go? Like, how does that thing eat? And oh, by the way, it's too big. It won't fit in the barn. And boy, it's really noisy. And you can see all the reasons why that's not so great yet. And the horse is so much better. But the reality is technology and innovation keeps improving. So what is maybe not so great today, in 5, 10, 20 years, maybe the thing that totally disrupts your business. Mm-hmm. And so we face all of these challenges, and this is the work I do as this kind of Tech Sherpa, is to help people feel comfortable and connect the future to the present, which is very, very challenging. But this is part of, I'm looking for, you know, the early visionary, right? I'm looking for that leader who's visionary, who can see the potential of the thing that's in front of them, like the automobile. Right, that says, you know what, this automobile thing, yep, it's maybe noisy and doesn't work so great right now, but I can imagine a future where that will replace horses. Horses will have a role, but the role will change, and how we do it will change. And so that's what I'm always looking for, is those visionary people who can see the work that we're doing, because I can't make somebody see something they're not ready for. Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of the connecting point. And I work with our engineers and scientists to help translate things for them. So I'm, in another way you can think of it, is I ask my young nieces, they would say, you know, what does uncle do? And I say, well, I'm kind of like this translator. I'm trying to translate the needs and wants and the visions of our customers with the needs and wants and visions of our engineers and scientists that are inventing the future. And I'm trying to make those connecting points. The other way is I'm maybe like a matchmaker.
I'm like a matchmaker. I'm trying to like match people up and, and go, hey, I want you to date this person. I think you're going to be really good. So
incredible.
And part of my work too here at Oceanit is I'm like the top recruiter here. I find our very best top people here at Oceanit. And I'm the non-technical guy, by the way, and discovered I'm kind of like a talent agent for technology. And so I find these, surprisingly amazing people in different places, and I brought them to Oceanit. And because of them, we've become the company we are today. It's really driven by the people that are here. And what's interesting about these big energy conferences is you really have the biggest, in the past, the biggest companies in the world have been energy companies. Now that's going to change. The biggest companies in the future are going to be digital companies. But the energy industry is having to make this major transition. But when you go there, everything is pretty like, you look at these booths and they're like $1 million. They're just amazing. I was mentioning to somebody, we're like in the prime area, and every booth that was there, including ours, has a coffee bar. Like a full on, like a barrister, coffee, like, what do you want? We will prepare anything for you. Like, just amazing, right? You're thinking they're spending, and this is our partner now, spending really, really a lot, investing a lot in this. But normally at these booths, you don't see much happening. Like, there's not like a lot of innovation. And so our thing was innovation. So we literally, the whole theme was this innovation center. And we just constantly had all of these amazing interactive displays and demonstrations of artificial intelligence and all the advanced materials that we work on. And so it really was the hit of the show, because normally you don't see that at a show like this. You just have this huge booth. It's beautiful. There's nice chairs, and you sit down and you have coffee and you talk. Whereas ours was like a technology petting zoo, we call it. And you just came around and you would play with stuff and interact with our technologies and imagine and hopefully be inspired of what the future could be based on this new revolution or technology that we're bringing to market.
Wow. We need a booth like that, Amber. You think you can get us one?
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Maybe we have some stuff for you. Yeah, we can give you some stuff too.
Pictures. We can show our concept.
Anything to make it.
Well, I want to. That's so incredible. But I want to also talk about what you're doing in schools, and it was interesting that you talked about finding these people that have this visionary kind of that can see the disruptive technology or can see the disruptive whatever you're creating and see how the car is going to become the future. And my first thought was, well, you need to go to the kindergarten because they can all imagine that stuff. But I wanted you to,
absolutely,
you could share a little bit about, is it called the Altino?
Yes, it's Altino. It's called Altino.
It's like a tiny Tesla. It sounds like, but I would really love for you to share what you're trying to do in Hawaii with all of the students and coding, and talk a little bit about how this car is helping you do that. I read about the car and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to have this.
Yeah, it's it actually the car itself came out of my work in I've been opening the Korea market for Oceanit for the last 5 years, and so my work takes me to South Korea quite often, and our partners there heard that we're very involved with public education here in Hawaii. And so back around 2016, they said, hey, you'd be really interested to know that South Korea is making computer science a mandatory class, not an elective. So what they're saying is every student in South Korea will be exposed to computer science every year. Like how you have math and English, you will have computer science. And I was just like, whoa. Like, first thought I thought was what does that mean for young people and for their society as a country? And the second one was, how are you going to actually do that? Because there is not enough computer science teachers in South Korea. And that's the same issue that we have in the United States, is if you want to make computer science available to every student, right now, the big hurdle is there's just not enough computer science teachers. Because if you're a computer science graduate, even here at the University of Hawaii, with a 4-year degree, I come out of the University of Hawaii with a 4-year computer science degree, I will probably start at $75,000. I will start significantly ahead of any teacher. And it's hard to attract teachers into the field. So I was like, how are you going to do this? And they said, well, we have invented teaching systems to train non-technical teachers in computer science. And so we were shown all the different things to educate teachers. And the Altino car was like really the best that we saw. And they had taken, they had made computer science or learning it fun and easy and engaging and relevant, because I said, why did you guys use a car as a way to do this? It goes, because everyone can kind of understand a car. And I said, what about a drone? Well, he said, well, imagine have 30 drones flying around a classroom. That's going to be like a disaster. I go, good question, a good answer. And they said, yeah, it's a car. So kids get in cars all the time, right? So they will understand what this is. And so we tested the idea at the ending of 2016 with about 40 adults and a couple students. I knew the issue wouldn't be the students. The issue is with us as the adults. And what I was testing for was, after a day and a half of teaching this coding to the adults, would they be excited and inspired, or would they just be terrified and frustrated and just mad and just go, you know what, we can't do this? And really, at the end of it, it was so successful. Everyone was so excited. And because again, you know, when you walk into these situations, like, I'm going to learn C programming. Like we teach C language. We're not doing, we can do visual block coding, but really we started with, you're going to learn C, like a foundational language like C. And, you know, everyone was just terrified. But after a day and a half, everyone was like, oh my gosh, I can actually learn this. And this is when, again, as the adults, we go, if I can learn this, a third grader can learn this. And that was the beginning of, okay, now we have to do this. And that's began the journey of doing this. And as non-teachers, you know, we didn't really know what we were doing, but we did know that we wanted teachers. We were going to focus on teachers because we wanted to reach every student. In order to do that, we have to train the teachers computer science. And we also wanted to make it, we wanted to give the teachers an incentive, because we did not want this to end up being an after-school program. It'd be great if it's an after-school program, but we wanted them to actually teach computer science in the classroom. So if I'm teaching history, I'm also teaching computer science. So we're looking for all the non-technical teachers across every subject, from automotive tech to construction tech to physical education, special education, didn't matter. So we designed the course to actually enable teachers to develop new curriculum in their subject areas. But we also did it where we got our curriculum approved by the Department of Education in Hawaii for 3 credits. So teachers, when they take our 3-day class, they can get 3 credits, but actually it impacts their pay levels. So so when we designed this, we actually learned from kind of the godfather of robotics here in Hawaii, Art Kimura and Reen Kimura, the husband and wife team, who really transformed so much of Hawaii because of their focus on robotics. So Hawaii is a big robotics, like Vex Robotics, First Robotics. We're really huge here. We're some of the best teams in the world. I learned from them the work they had done and just built upon what they had done. And we wanted to, again, focus on the teachers and getting it into the classroom. So that's kind of how it started. And so we've trained over 500 teachers so far over the last almost 3 years. On average, a Hawaii teacher will reach about 50 students. And our goal is eventually to reach, to do 5,000 teachers, train 5,000 teachers. And when we do that, I think we will have the critical mass to reach, we have about 180,000 students here in Hawaii. And I think at the time when I was looking at what is the metric of success, initially it was around how many teachers do the PD work. Now, if you think about it, if there's 500 teachers, of which I want to say about 300 have done it for PD, each teacher will generate 3 lesson plans as part of their PD work. So literally 9,000 lesson plans have already, or like 900 lesson plans have been created. But the idea to it is initially my metric was, how many teachers lesson plans, how many teachers do it for PD? But after about a year or 2 years, I started realizing that really the true metric of success is, do I have teachers in the furthest reaches of Hawaii? and on the most rural islands and the furthest places where you would not go, there is computer science happening in that third grade class. So really my metric now is how many teachers do I have at Kohala Elementary on the Big Island that's teaching computer science, or Pukalani, or some other places on Maui or Kauai. That becomes really, to me, the metric of success is, do we really have these teachers in the furthest reaches? Because it's all around equity, and right, it's really around normally what happens too is these kind of cutting edge education and learnings normally only get to the 1% of students, the gifted and talented students. And I saw that over and over again. I was like, that's really great, but what about me? Think about it. I wasn't in the gifted and talented group. I was in the bottom group. How do I get that? Because I needed that the most, right? The kids who need it the most are normally the ones that don't get it because their teachers don't get those opportunities. So really it was around it's easy to imagine on Oahu where, you have the concentration of the population and it's easy for teachers to do PD, but how do you do the teacher in Kohala Elementary on the Big Island? So literally now we go to the neighbor islands and we schedule. So this coming year, we have 12 PD sessions happening. So three 3-credit trainings on every island. So we will go to those islands and actually host trainings there for those teachers.
There are so many parallels between. Yeah. I mean, the EntreEd model is the exact same thing from an entrepreneurship lens, in that we're really big advocates for integrating into curriculum, into core classrooms already. The idea of locally based PD, all of that is exactly the EntreEd model.
Awesome.
And I love what you said about students, and you didn't want to do it as an after school program, because that's one of the things that we've seen the most, is that a lot of these programs, I was on a call recently where they referred to it as the self-selection plague, where you only reach a small group of students that have the means to get to those after school programs or to even understand elective courses. So I think what you're doing is so important, and the model is so parallel to, I know I saw you smiling the whole way through, but so parallel to what we do.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think what you're doing, and again, we've kind of learned, we're here because of so much mentoring from other people who are teachers. I mean, we're kind of wayfinding our way. It's not like we've had this all figured out, right? We kind of said, we just have to go. And in many ways, I think because we're outside of education, we're a private, kind of applied research group. We didn't really ask for permission. We kind of said, here's where we see a gap and how can we make a difference? And because again, I think if I had to explain to people what we're trying to do, everyone would probably say, well, show me the proof, Ian, that this would work. And we would spend it would have been 3 years later, still trying to show okay, this could work. Or that's the hard part about anything that's truly new, right? There's no evidence that it's going to work. So you know what?
Fired up here.
You just got to do it, right?
You're about to get us going.
We have the same, oh my gosh, all of the same issues, because that's what is so interesting about what you're doing is that, one, you're taking it into classrooms that you wouldn't think about taking it into, like algebra, like PE, and
history.
History, social studies.
And we do the same. We do the same thing with entrepreneurship, and we always have that look of teachers well, I'm not an entrepreneurship teacher. Well, you actually are. We can help you, and so that's so funny how similar that is. But it really is just, and when you do that though, you get so many. I bet you get the most creative ideas from places you didn't think about, like history or where, and that we do the same thing. We get these amazingly creative ideas. We have a funny PE story, and they
I'd love to hear it.
We were in a training for 200 teachers. It was a district training.
Wow.
And we have them do similarly, literally your model is, we have them create a lesson plan that integrates entrepreneurship in their classroom. And there's always, the gym teachers and the health teachers were kind of congregated in this little area of the space where we were doing it. And we were just walking around, and they were how do we do this in a gym class? They were like, this isn't realistic. But they ended up coming up with this really cool idea of having students create nutrition plans for the local community and to create fitness videos, because I mean that's a growing industry. So it was really neat, but it just took a little time. But once they got in that mindset, then they ran with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think part of it too, what you're doing is you're helping the teachers expand their box. Right. I think what I've saw, because we started the design thinking movement here in Hawaii like 10 years ago. And I remember after each boot camp, we would do a pulse survey. We do a pre and post survey. And I remember after the first boot camp and we got the pulse surveys in from the teachers, I was just so amazed. I was reading all of these, just inspiring, like teachers just going, my students have so much more potential than I've given them credit for. And I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Their students didn't go to the boot camp. The teachers did. But what I think has happened is the teachers' capacity to do more was expanded. So what gets transferred now is their belief that their students have more capacity and capability and more creativity and more innovation than they gave them credit for. Mm-hmm. That's why I think great students actually come from great teachers. It's kind of this correlation, I think. If your teacher is scared of the world, then your students will be scared of the world, I think. And if you're fearless and courageous and are willing to maybe not look so good, not sound so good, have maybe some wrong answers, but you're going to use that experience to learn and go forward, not backwards, your students will do the same, I think. I think it's just this. That's why to me, the teachers are so important. We spend so much time with them. And I tell them, this takes me away from the work that I'm doing. This is probably costing Oceanit millions of dollars because I'm doing this with you. But it's an investment because it's so important. It really is. It's hard to see the return yet. It's like you got to have so much faith that the work you're doing will have impact in 20 years because that's normally what it's going to take. And generally in the work that we do at Oceanit, the technology work, everything we do, we won't see the results for maybe 15, 20, 30 years. Because the technology development will take minimally 10 years, right? And so we just recently did our strategic planning session, and I shared to people why this work that we're doing around kind of the social impact is so important. And I told them, here's my personal reason. Because of our work, we don't get to see the benefits of it for 10, 15 years. I can't wait that long. We work so hard doing these game-changing things, but we won't really see the impact of it for a long time. I can't wait that long. That's why working with students and teachers and the community work that we do is so important, because it gives us the opportunity to see things happening today and tomorrow. And yes, those things would also take 15 or 20 years. But when you see a teacher light up and be inspired, that then inspires their students, that makes it all worth it.
I'm getting emotional.
I cry all the time when I'm talking to teachers because I really...
Let's not cry on the...
Yeah.
Hey, everyone, we're just really passionate, okay? All our listeners.
Yeah, we're really passionate about this stuff. Yeah. So anyway, it's such great, work that I think everyone is doing, and trying to... Again, it's like, how do you disrupt without disrupting?
Oh, I like that. That's awesome.
It's easy to disrupt, right? But it's harder to disrupt without disrupting.
Wow. That's really good. It's a good soundbite right there. I do have a kind of a side question. I'm super interested in all the technology advancement space, but I know nothing about it. But you had mentioned Aloha AI and how you're working on artificial intelligence stuff too. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how you're thinking about using that in schools in Hawaii, because it's such that's so outside of the realm of what people are even thinking about right now.
Oceanit works on the next generation of artificial intelligence. So we're working on the AI you'll see in maybe 10 or 20 years. So it's really kind of the next major leap in it. And as we're doing that, I started maybe about 3 or 4 years ago exploring around, what is available today around artificial intelligence. And AI has been around since the 50s and 60s, by the way, but it's gone through these hype cycles, right? Like, oh, AI is going to transform, and it doesn't really, right? But as I was starting kind of doing my research, I started, I found a really interesting guy that in the process, we eventually brought onto Oceanit. But the thing that, and ultimately on all of this research as I was doing and working with him was AI is actually here today. It's actually all around us. You may not realize, that Siri and Alexa, the autonomous cars that are starting, like Tesla and all these things are actually happening now. Because in my mind, I had this progression of, okay, we're going to teach teachers design thinking 10 years ago. And then 3 years ago, we're going to start teaching teachers computer science, which actually, by the way, is not about computer science. I tell teachers and students, I'm not trying to make every student a computer scientist. What computer science does is creates creative problem solvers. And that's really the mindset that I'm trying to teach through coding, but make it really fun. So that was like the second major movement we tried to start, was bringing computer science to teachers and students. And then artificial intelligence was going to be something maybe 2 or 3 years from now that I was going to start. But because the research I was doing was saying, oh no, it's here now, I said, oh my gosh, we have to do this now. We have to start preparing students and ourselves for this future that's coming, that's called artificial intelligence. In 1995, when I had my software company, I saw the future. I saw the internet. I saw the web browser. I remember going over to one of my software developers, and he was looking at this screen, and I go, what is this thing is up on your screen? He goes, that's what's called a web browser. And this is the Mosaic browser that had just come out. And I go, what is this thing you're looking at? He goes, this is a web page. And I go, well, what is this? What is this thing up on the screen? He goes, oh, this is a website called Yahoo. I go, Yahoo? What is Yahoo, right? And so I asked him, so what is the internet? And what do you do with it? And this is in 1995. AI is at that point. Everyone's asking the same question. What is artificial intelligence? And what do you do with it? And so I had this deja vu moment, right? It's like, oh my gosh, we're back in 1995, and here's the next major wave that's going to transform everything. So we thought the internet was big. Artificial intelligence is going to be bigger.
Buckle up, guys.
Yeah, it's buckle up, and it's here now, and it's going. And 3 years later, yeah, it is kind of crazy. And so last year, early last year, we started doing workshops, artificial intelligence workshops here in Hawaii. So we've done 6 of them. In fact, one of the last ones we did for the Department of Education leadership team. So the superintendent of our school, who's kind of like the CEO of we have a kind of a centralized kind of school system here. Mm-hmm. So she and her entire leadership team, now to her credit, she's the one that came to us. She said, I heard you guys are doing so much things in artificial intelligence, and I heard you're doing some kind of workshop. Could you do one special for the Department of Education? And so part of it is we've been exposing people to this future of AI and what's possible. And we literally do a hands-on workshop. So the majority of the workshop is people actually building an artificial intelligence model. Okay, so we actually build and train a model that will detect if you're wearing an aloha shirt. People know them as Hawaiian shirts, but we call them aloha shirts in Hawaii, which is really hard. Now, a human can probably go, I think that's an aloha shirt. But for a computer to do that would have been impossible just a few years ago. Very hard to go, okay, that's an aloha shirt. So if I pull out an aloha shirt, it will detect that. So literally we do a workshop where people build a model to do the actual detection of an aloha shirt. And as we were doing these workshops, people would say okay, so what's next, Ian? And I'd be like, I don't know. That's not the purpose. The purpose was to just expose you to that there's this thing called artificial intelligence, and it's going to transform our world. And as we did this workshop, eventually, a principal here who I think you should probably interview as well down the road is this amazing innovation pioneering principal named Keith Hayashi at Waipahu High School. I think he's in Ted's book, Most Likely to Succeed, and he's one of the model schools here. And he got exposed to it, and he said, Ian, how do I bring this to my students? Like, how do we bring this to kids today and not wait? And so that really started me thinking last year, okay. And so we started developing a way to bring artificial intelligence to students. Normally, you got to have a PhD and you got to be just this brainiac person in coding and all this stuff. So we developed basically a toolkit and a system to bring AI into the classroom. And so basically, it's AI sensors that we've actually put together. We give a school 10 of these sensors. Now, these sensors are designed to, they basically count people. They're not motion detectors, they're people detectors. So literally, we put these sensors in different locations. The school can put them in different locations, maybe like a library. Mm-hmm. And it will count how many people are coming into the library. And you put these sensors in different places. And the idea is like, it sounds really simple. Like counting is like, well, what's so valuable about counting? Well, imagine you had somebody, an artificial person that never got tired, just stood there all day.
Behaviors. Like you can track so many. I'm making my mind go.
Like how many people come into the library? How many people leave the library? When did they come in? So we're kind of date and time stamping every time somebody walks into the library. Right? Or how many people are coming into the cafeteria? How many people are coming into a particular room, the band room, the art room? And all of a sudden, all of this information actually goes into kind of a database in the cloud. And the idea was to remove the barrier of using artificial intelligence for students. Because normally students have so many great ideas, but they do not have the technical chops to implement an idea. So we said, you know what? Let's take that off the table. Let's make AI not the issue. Let's give them this powerful tool and let them now try and figure out, how do you use this tool to do something valuable, right? Mm-hmm. So basically this, the students will have this tool where they're counting. It all goes into a database. And basically we build some very basic tools that the students can then hack. And those students who have technical chops that can do programming and build apps and build websites, guess what? They now have the data to build some amazing websites. So if the DOE said, hey, we want to know which are the busiest libraries in the state of Hawaii, we go to the students, here's a design challenge. Develop a website or an app that will help the DOE understand which are the busiest libraries or cafeterias in the state of Hawaii, and which are not the busiest ones. Could we repurpose those facilities for other things? But really, it's having the students kind of apply their design thinking skills to figure out what is a good problem to solve. But AI is no longer the issue like, okay, how do we build a system? We don't have to go there anymore. We built the system, now you use it. Because in a way, my ultimate goal is, so imagine now you have every school in the state of Hawaii have 10 sensors. So there's 2,000 of these people counting sensors around the state. Now, that's just the beginning, because these sensors can count other things too. It doesn't just count people. We can train them to count something else, like how many kids are wearing a backpack, or how many kids are wearing their school uniform, or how many chickens are running around this school, right? But my real big hope is that we will create these entrepreneurs. We will create these AI entrepreneurs who will create these AI companies for Hawaii and around the world that don't exist yet, right? So we're because the companies we need for the future are not going to get created by the companies that exist today. That's my belief, is the companies that exist today will not be the ones creating the future economy. It will ultimately come from these young people. So we're going to give them this powerful tool called artificial intelligence. And they're going to use, hopefully, their creativity and their design thinking skills to figure out and see the world in a different way, and maybe create a company that solves a very specific problem for the community and for their society. And that leads to the next great technology companies here in Hawaii and in the United States. So that's kind of the plan. That's kind of this big dream I have of like, I think if we give these kids these tools and set them loose and get them focused on what problem in the world do you want to solve, and here's this powerful tool called AI, what do you want to do? And they will create in the next 10, 15, 20 years, those amazing AI-powered technology companies.
Oh, you're blowing my mind. You already blew my mind 25 minutes ago, but what an awesome idea to take that barrier off the table.
Yeah.
And you are going to have students that then they can see the power of it, and then they can go and, then that gives them the incentive to go figure it out and to go do and go there. That's so incredible.
Because we already see, you see it, I think we all see it, like students have, they see the world in totally different ways. And it's because of that difference, right? They're asking, why is this problem still occurring? Like they will see the world and they will see all the problems that we're not fixing as adults, right? They keep probably asking, why is that problem not solved? But even when they identify that problem, normally they don't have the technical ability to solve that problem, right? And so we're taking that off and saying, no, here's a superpower tool. Here's this superpower you're going to have. And it's called design thinking. It's called computer science if you want it. And it's called artificial intelligence. Now go into the world and solve that problem.
Wow. That's
and they will transform. I think what's really, I'm on this workforce development council in Hawaii, and they always want to talk to us and stuff. And I said, you need to be talking to students and to teachers and helping us figure out how do we help our teachers become more entrepreneurial, which is the work that you're doing, right? How do you help? Because they're going to spend more time with our kids than we will as parents in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that person is, that teacher, if they, again, are fearless and are a lifelong learner, and they love to learn, and they're passionate, and they're enthusiastic, those behaviors will get transferred to our kids. So I want to make sure that teacher is world class. Like if that teacher didn't want to be a teacher, you know what? They could have been the CEO of a company. They could have been, the minister or whatever. They could have been the evangelist. They could have been the great technologist. It didn't matter, but they have all of that, and they decide that I'm going to be a teacher in the classroom and impact students every day.
That's so important. And unfortunately, we have to close, but that's a great way to close the
That was intense. Sorry.
It's been amazing. Oh my gosh. I'm getting goosebumps. We're getting emotional. It's crazy. This has been such a pleasure and honor to have you on today. So
thank you so much.
Before we go, can you please tell our listeners how to connect with you to learn more about the work you're doing in the schools and at Oceanit and just everything else?
We literally can't talk it. We're so in awe.
Definitely you can go to oceanit.com. You can check us out with the work that we do. A lot of it is posted up on our website. You can find me on Twitter at Kitajima, so Kitajima. On Twitter, I'm also on Facebook as Ian Kitajima. You can find me on Instagram as well as Kitajima.
Great.
And you can email me too. If you want to email me, it's Oceanit.com. And thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for the work you're doing too.
Incredibly great work that you're doing. This is awesome. So we're excited to just continue to stay in touch because you can't get rid of us now that we know about all the cool things you're doing.
So come for a visit too. You can see it firsthand.
Yeah.
We see how many times the censors can pick us up attending Hawaii Beach. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi all, we are super excited to offer an exclusive discount for our listeners to attend this year's EntreEd Forum taking place on November 18th and 19th in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have an incredible lineup of speakers and experiential learning opportunities to help you ignite entrepreneurial thinking and integrate entrepreneurship into your learning communities. Use promo code EntreEd Talk to receive 5% off of every individual registration. Again, that's promo code EntreEd Talk. To learn more about the forum and register, visit www.entre-ed.org today and subscribe for updates as we launch new things happening every week as part of the planning for the forum. Thanks. See you there.